In this speech, we will share a compelling case study about how we navigated the changing economic landscape and rediscovered the product market fit for the fintech product. Over the course of 3 months, we analyzed 12 countries and 24 segment audiences to identify the key drivers that impact product market fit in the industry. Our expert insights and strategies can help you regain your own product market fit in a changing environment. So please welcome Kristina Marinović, coming from UXSSR, a director at UXSSR. Welcome. Stage is yours.
So how's the sound going? Good? Perfect, thank you. I was just at the Robbie Williams concert, so my voice is a bit low, so I hope I will survive this. My name is Kristina Marinović. I'm the Strategic Management Director at the consulting firm UXSSR. And today I'm going to discuss with you one of the most intense projects that we had recently. It's the segment on fintech, especially in crypto. And despite all the things that has been happening last year with crypto and the venture funds and venture capital, this is a story with a good end. So today we'll be discussing with you how we analyzed 12 countries in terms of the product market fit for the project and 24 segments of different types of investors and managers in the field. So the backstory of the project was that it was one of the first projects in the crypto copy trading area in back 2015. So it was a very forthcoming project and was very, there were very good expectations about how we're going to work with that field. And the expectations were that they were going to be the first global product in this area. It didn't work out at that time. The team had huge experience in crypto and fintech. They were previously working in huge corporations. They have been launching their previous startups, but it didn't work out with the copy trading system, and I will tell you why in the future slides. So we started collaborating to 2021, and it was a very interesting project because it was just after the pandemic when a lot of people were starting to know about the passive income systems and about the crypto. It was a bit of the high at the moment, if you do remember that time. And the company trends at this time, paradoxically, were not working good. And against the market, actually the project was losing the money when other competitors were gaining them. So the marketing and communication wasn't quite effective. It was the ambition to be the global company, but the results in different markets in Asia and Latin America, they didn't provide the cash flow that was expected. And the market share and product perception was very low. So our task was actually to discuss with the project leaders why it's happening and to understand who is actually the target audience of the product and what are their needs. Because when we first started discussing this project and this system, this actually platform, we've came to understanding that actually there was no competitors analysis and there was no project proposition related in terms of the different markets. So it was first launched in Switzerland and the continental Europe. And then the project was relaunched in Asia and Latin America with very little consideration about what are the market trends and what are the social trends with crypto in these regions. And so our task was actually quite ambitious because we did have to develop a single product to work in all these markets after all the changes that we would made. So how it started? The kickoff section with a new project is always like a bit of session with a new therapist when you discuss what are the problems, what haven't worked with you before, and what you're expecting to do, and what results are you looking for. So our first step was to actually gain the actual knowledge about the target audience, because we suppose that there are a lot of people that are quite interested in gaining passive income from the copy trading in crypto and overall in the investments, but we really didn't know who these people were, like what is their age, what is their marital status, etc. And we've discussed that the project was built not based on the needs and actual research of the patterns of the audience, but based solely on the experience of the previous startups that these founders have launched, which is not a great strategy. And also, we would need to discuss what the competitors that have developed their product for 6 years by that time were doing and why they were communicating so successfully in comparison with the target rate that I'm talking about here. So the initial approach plan here was to select a certain amount of countries. We discussed 12 countries from different areas. It was Africa, Nigeria, India, Turkey, Vietnam, Thailand, UK, United States, Pakistan, South Korea, Canada, Indonesia, and Germany. The main reason why we picked these very, very different countries was because either there was already some crypto trades happening there, or they were even legalized like in Thailand by that time, or because it was very hype theme in the region and a lot of people were trying to get acknowledged by that and they tried to understand how it would gain them. And we discussed with the client that we would have to conduct the in-depth interviews and test our project and our products of the competitors on the actual audience. So our task was to really find those people that like in Pakistan or in like Vietnam, they were using their crypto instruments that were quite illegal by that time in the country. So it was very CIA-like work because we have to find them not in the dark web but close enough. And also we analyzed the competitors' features to see how they could influence our decisions and our product's UTPs. So in the process of developing these interviews and developing the project, we've discovered some new approaches for how we could evaluate the hypothesis of every product. And the result of that became some new methodologies that we are going to discuss later tomorrow on a workshop. And if you would like to know more about that, how we could evaluate the features of the product versus the needs of the customer versus the competitors' needs and actual market budget that you do have, you should visit our workshop tomorrow at 3 p.m., I guess. So how we did that? Our approach always is to educate the product team that we're working with. So we actually started to work very closely with the founders of the company, and we started to synchronize with them daily based on what data they were receiving from the traders, from the investors within the platform. Also, we were discussing with them how we could create the better delivery of the changes. And also in the meantime, when we're discussing what we're going to do, we were also educating them about how you actually build the project, because even though these founders, they had previous experience, most of their products were built because they thought they have a new idea, but they haven't really tested any of those ideas before. So this helped us to be sure that all the ideas and all the changes in the project that we're going to find via these interviews will be really implemented and will be happening later after we left the project. And as I said in the beginning, this is a successful story because nowadays this company is not only very profitable, but they even have the Conor McGregor as their ambassador, which is very, very expensive if you know who I'm talking about. So when we were discussing this project and these products with the target audience, we've developed a deep understanding of how different actually all these countries, all these regions are in terms of how do they make any financial decisions, how do they decide to invest overall, and how they try to invest in crypto. For instance, in Latin America, the copy trading is seen as the entry level in the investment overall, because most of the people there don't have a lot of financial education, they don't understand how the markets work. So for them, the copy trading is a good get-to-know scheme, how to understand how the markets work. And this works with them especially good with the crypto, because most of those people don't understand the nuances of the technology. If we talk about US and Europe, the understanding what is the cryptocurrency trading is much better, but they see the copy trading as an opportunity to earn money, to diversify their portfolio, because they're more used to do that in other instruments. So they don't want to waste a lot of time thinking about how they can do that, and they have no plans to actually develop a portfolio by themselves. So they just like to copy trade the existing specialist, existence influences in the field. And if we talk about Asia, copy trading is actually an opportunity to make trading process and to save some time, because they are very good with what is crypto, because they usually use a lot of crypto in day-to-day trading and even in purchases like in Vietnam and Thailand. But they don't want to think about that. They just want to see that their numbers go up. So we actually had this map of the project perception, what is crypto and what is the copy trading crypto in different areas. And keep in mind that we would have to create one single project for all these regions. It is only 12 countries, and this project was expected to work in all the countries in the world, and there were 196 nowadays. So you can see from this map that different markets and different areas have very different perception of what the copy trading actually is and how they can benefit from that. And there are some areas that are very surprising, that were very surprising for us, because in Asia, it's the only region in the world within our research that understood what actually the blockchain was. Most of the people in UK and United States, they heard of that, like they heard what is gluten. But if you ask them to understand and to explain to you what is copy trading, what is crypto, what is blockchain, like if you ask them what is gluten, they didn't know that. But they were one of the most active users of the platform at the same time. A bit of ridiculous information, but it was interesting to know that. And for them, different areas of trust were very important. So for instance, for the United States, big base of managers didn't actually matter because they only look for the real statistics and real outcome of different strategies. If you talk about the Europe, for instance, they didn't care at all about the credibility or the profitability of the proposed strategies, because they are quite used in their field that most of their strategies, most of their company investment, stuff like that, are actually insured. So for them, that was something to be a pet project, and they didn't see that as a real income strategy. So when we discussed that, when we had these in-depth interviews, we've come to understand that actually there were two different target audiences. Yes, there were some people that were interested to copy some trades, but also, naturally, there were some people that were actually trading and whose strategies they're going to be copied. And before that, there was no actual presence of this target audience within the platform, because they were seen as the people that just trade successfully, and they were not categorized as some people that have special needs within the platform or within any product. So these managers, they are very important, because if there are no stars, no people who you can copy from, then who is going to follow? It's mostly like TikTok and Instagram in this field, though it's going to be about investments. And we had some regional insights that are very interesting to understand how any project, financial or otherwise, can work in the region. And I've placed some very obvious ones or interesting ones, but actually we found a lot more insights about the different regions, and they were quite surprising, because they characterize how people really think about their finances, about their technologies, and we actually use this data for many projects in the future. And currently we have another project with another company about the crypto trading and the crypto insurance. And this project was from the late 21st, and nowadays we're doing the same project evaluation within these countries. And I can say that actually it haven't changed a lot. It's changed a bit in these areas, in these countries where there was a bit of change in the regulation, for instance. But mostly these trends that we have discussed here, they are quite the same nowadays as well. So this maintains the idea that actually there are a lot of trends, there are a lot of things happening in the news, for example, and in the media, but real motivational behavioral data is very deep-rooted in the community. For instance, in Nigeria, they are very family-like in terms of every decision that they're making, even if they don't have the people in their family or in the circle of friends that are experts in some area. They go into the internet, they go into the massive global platforms, and they're looking for the answer. The ones that they pick from, they are not based on how many followers the person has, if he or she is an expert in the field. If he's a Nigerian or she is a Nigerian, they will follow what she's saying. So for them, that was very interesting and very important in decision making about actually their finance future. And if we talk about India and Turkey, there were a lot of scam stories, so they are not very trusting to the new companies going into this area. And quite the same was with the Pakistan, because surprisingly, there were a lot of companies who were trying to create their own project in the crypto trading, but the aspect that we found quite interesting that no Pakistani actually believed anything that Pakistani company was talking about in their communications. If there was a global company, then they would use this company platform to work and to copy trade there. But if it was a local company, they were trying to escape the platform as soon as they understood that was a local company because of the lack of regulation and also because of a lot of scams that was happening by that time. And for instance, the South Koreans, they are the most risk-resistant people that we have ever discussed with the project, because their attitude basically was, well, if I lose money, then I will lose money. That's it. So if you want to have a project and develop it fastly, and you're looking at the Asian market, I would recommend to go to South Korea, because their ability and their love for novelty is unmatched in the region. And if you succeed there, you can quite easily go to other markets as well. So we also had the bit of the investor segmentation, because the beginners and experienced traders are quite different in their decision-making process. So the beginners, they're actually quite interested in everything, and they would follow anything that they look and see as quite trustworthy. If you talk about the experienced traders, they're actually looking for something that is going to make their time worth, basically, because they go to different platforms and usually they have different accounts on different platforms, but what they're actually looking for is very different within the markets. For instance, in the United States, they are actually looking for recognition, so they see these platforms and their followers as actual followers in Instagram or TikTok. So for them, it's more like a kickoff for their own career, and maybe in financial area or maybe media area. And for all other segments in the world that we've talked about, like Africa, Asia, Latin America, they see this opportunity just merely in terms of value for money, how much they could actually make from their followers and how can they successfully trade on the platform. So also, we've done a bit of UX research, obviously, and we've developed understanding that surprisingly people use the desktop and mobile versions very differently, because for professional traders, or the ones that trade to say that they're professional investors, they really use only this desktop, and they only use the phone for notifications if something happens with their portfolio. And in terms of the investors that are the beginners, they were actually using this phone because they were constantly in contact with their portfolio, constantly looking for new information, what they're going to copy next. So actually, when we summed up everything, we understood that these regions are so different. These segments of audience are so different. So we tried to develop two different approaches for the design of the desktop and mobile. And we decided to go with the right methodology. And we did a series of rapid interactive testing and redeveloped the product in a session of 6 maybe interactions. And we used different respondents for the testing of the product than we used to the in-depth interviews. And the result was that actually we rearranged everything within the platform. And for those that would be quite concerned about the verification process, about the data, if it's trustworthy or not, we made the opportunity to skip the hints and also to validate yourself as an investor or as a manager. And we redeveloped how they could see and look at the charts, because before that, they were very small, and when you look into trying to copy trade the portfolio and you see that the numbers are squeamish, you think instantly that that's something bad happening here. I cannot trust this platform with my money. Also, after all, what changed? We added information about the withdrawing funds, because obviously it's not very good for the platform when somebody goes and withdraws all the money, but it's necessary to make some peace with the people that only trying to do the crypto trading. Also, we added the information about the period of profitability of the portfolio that they're trying to copy, all the basic information basically that you can see in all the data on the financial data of the big banks, for instance, like Goldman Sachs, etc. And also we had the statistics on traders that users have bookmarked and followed, so it was actually looking a bit like a social platform as well. And what changed actually? The product changed because we have redeveloped the desktop and mobile versions into different projects that supported each other. And the mobile first was for the beginners that need to fast-track their decision-making process, and the desktop was made for the ones that have already experienced the copy trading, and they did understand what crypto trading overall was. And we focused the marketing team and the communication team on the need to educate people first in some regions, because a lot of people didn't understand what crypto trading actually meant. And we introduced the trial period from up to 6 months, which was a huge decision for the company, because usually it's a month, maybe 2 months, and we've expanded to 6 months. And also we worked on the project on the website in the way that it was reminding of the traditional financial platforms that you can use, which also was helping with trustworthy issues for some new audience. It all happened very quickly. It was a project that we conducted for almost like 3 months or so. And we worked, as I told previously, as the co-founders service, because we implemented the attitude that we're going to educate the team of the project itself and help them understand their project better, and to change their mindset from we're doing something because we believe that is good to something tested on the actual users that are going to use the platform. And we added this with expertise in business strategy development and co-creation of the project that we have previously done. And also trying to invest in this idea that every project has to be client-centered and actually based on these insights that the users have. Because if you do that, you actually make a lot of more money with less investments, because word of mouth really works, because it doesn't only work in terms of that. If they're quite familiar with the project and they've seen this ad, for example, on Facebook or somewhere else, they're feeling quite trustworthy, so they're going to use less impressions per one person to actually become the user of the platform. But because in some regions, as I talked before, the only reason for you to gain the traction is if somebody within the family in Nigeria believes that you're trustworthy, and then it works as word of mouth, and you can actually use that in your communication. So about us, we're a consulting company from London, and we really have a lot of projects. It's a real number. Sometimes I get asked if it's a mistake, but yes, we have more than 5,000 projects completed in 6 years, and we spread around the world. I personally run the Hungarian office, and I have my colleague here from Germany, but we are headquartered in London, and as I discussed today, we have Asia, and our approach is that we from Latin America back to Asia. And our approach is that we try to make every product based on the insight of the actual client, and to develop this idea that everything has to be tested, and you shall never believe what you think, and your basic knowledge about any idea and about any previous expertise that you may have. So that's me. You can join me on LinkedIn, and you can ask us any questions if you have any right now or back on the email. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the very fruitful presentation, very good insights, never heard of them.
Thank you.
It was quite useful. Time for questions. Anyone? Can I make one?
Yeah, sure.
About the co-founders as a service. I mean, it's something new for me, and I would like to hear more about that. I mean,
okay. So our idea is that basically in many startups there's usually a technical founder that is responsible for building the platform. We will say about digital services or something like that. And there is also some creative, productive force, like CPO or something like that. And depending on the experience and if they already had some startups together or even separately, most of these co-founders, what they lack in terms of time and energy to spend on is to scale their business knowingly, because a lot of people, they create their own idea, and it may be even successful. They can get the investments, and in times when you go to the seed stage, you have to scale your business, and you either go to new segments within the country, within the region they have that you have already been, or you go to other countries. And this is the very crucial place where a lot of mistakes are happening and where a lot of startups die, because when you go with the same project to another region and you don't ask the client service team in these regions about what is actually happening on the market, and you just have this idea that your product will automatically work, then you fail. Because sometimes even if you go to the neighboring country, it's very different, because even in Germany and France, yes, the neighboring countries, that they are in Europe, but they're very different in terms of culture, in terms of decision making, and especially when you try to build a global company, you cannot just use this European-centric product and go to Latin America or Asia and just change the language. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, you need to localize. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Hello, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the amazing presentation. It was so insightful. And I have quite a practical question that comes from the problem that I have at my current job so far. And I was interested to know about your maybe practical tips on working with stakeholders. So how to make like founders just get rid of their vision if you see that based on your research on what you've done, it's not kind of what works for the market, and you see that what they're going to do is not working. And so far I see that only when they face some practical results of that their vision is wrong is the time when they want to make any changes.
The honest questions to let them fail, basically, and this is what we actually do sometimes, because this company, why I talked about it, it was a very successful story in terms of the founders that were open to listening other opinions and actually listen to their users, because sometimes it happens like that. Even they do conduct the research. If they don't like the results, for instance, they say in a strike, you have been doing, and to say, I have been there. There was a very good explanation saying about the emotions, and if you have been there, there was a very good explanation saying 25% of the company. In our area expertise, actually, there is like 25% of the companies. In our area expertise, actually, there is like 25% of the companies. Our area expertise, actually, there is like 25% of the companies that our area expertise, actually, there is like 25% of the companies that we area expertise, actually, there is like 25% of the companies that we work area expertise, actually, there is like 25% of the companies that we work expertise, actually, there is like 25% of the companies that we work with, and we help them to relaunch their product market fit and to actually change what the company is doing. These are the companies that have contacted us a year or maybe 2 years before, and they didn't like the recommendations that we were just giving. And one of the good examples of that is the Dodo Pizza. Maybe you know this company. They were trying to go to the Britain markets like 5 years ago. They failed dramatically. They wasted a lot of money there. And we're actually starting to go there with us, because we have the London-based company, and we have been working with different companies there already, but they decided that they can do this themselves. We said, okay, that's your choice, that's good. In 2 years' time, it was already the start of the pandemic. They decided to go again because they had to close the business there. They just cashed out and went to other areas. And this time it was successful because they knew that they have actually to listen to somebody else instead of themselves. So the short answer that is you have to give them as much information to think about as you could. Still do this research, still provide them with the data, and try to make them see that these are not your interpretations, but this is actually the quotes of the people that could pay them for their project. If this doesn't work, just wait a bit, because sometimes it works out like that. In half an hour or in half a month, they maybe come back. And because the venture capital market has drastically changed last year, I think this is a good idea to let them suffer a bit, because the sooner they understood that they have to change themselves and then to change the company, the better, but that's actually their choice. So I feel your pain, really, I do. And they can be very stubborn people, but it's okay, it's just time. It's very lame answer, I guess, but it's actually working like that because you're working with people and their motivation.
sometimes people don't want to change unless there is no option to change.
Absolutely, yes, because it's like with the company, you have to change constantly to succeed, but those people that actually run in these companies, they forget that to change the company, they have to change themselves first. And especially when you had a very successful project before, it's so much harder to make yourself listen to other people because you have success stories. In this case, these co-founders, they were having different backgrounds. So some of their projects were successful, some they were not. And really how a lot of successful people tell the best thing you can do for yourself is to fail. I totally agree with that, because without failing first, understanding why you failed, you cannot build a successful company after that.
Yeah, thank you, Kristina, for your performance. One part which I like is about the regions, nuances. It's not about my question, but just I want to highlight that. I heard in Egypt there is a nuance that even you're pretty rich, you couldn't use more than 1,000 a month of dollars. So it's a just nuance, and I agree that each region has very specific. So, but my question was about, you mentioned RIT methodology, you called it rapid iterative testing.
Yes.
And it mentioned like speed testing and redevelopment. So for me, redevelopment means it's you're spending money for nothing because you develop something and you redevelop. So it's like losses. And also it's, for me, it means maybe like A/B testing. So could you just expand what
Yes,
why it's rapid? What is the speed testing?
Okay, so the A/B testing is when you make one change in the product, in the MVP, in the landing, whatever you're testing, and you test it on different segments of the same audience at the same time. And you see how these results contradict and which option is better. With Right, you do quite different thing. You go with very, is it okay? You go with very short interactions. You may change one thing, you can change more things in every test. And what you do is actually, you launch MVP, for instance, if you're starting from that. You get the information, something is working, something is not, based on statistics, based on the analytics and stuff like that. And then you change something in this product. So how you go? You don't go into full production mode. You go and make another set of interviews. So you make a product, you show how you asking the person to use this product, and you listen to the feedback, and you use a different expert. You can not only do the in-depth interview, you can use the technical analyst based on how they use their computer mouse or something like that. And you see where the challenges for the user at this time, and you change this part. So the point is not to relaunch the whole product. You don't start with MVP and then the second MVP and stuff like that. You go from one characteristics and then you change that. Then you go back to testing with the same audience or some new people within the same segment. And then go like that with very short interactions. The goal here is that you, with rights testing, you go rapidly, like one day of change something. If it's taking more time, you don't do that. Then you go one day of testing, and then you go, the third day is for analyzing the data, and then you go again. You go like create a new version, testing and evaluating the analytics. With A/B testing, usually you use that when you have to go through a lot of amount of people. With Right, you use like 2 or 3 responses maybe, but they have to be very good within the segment. Yes. From real users, yes. So.
Just 2 of several responses. Statistically, doesn't mean nothing.
Yes.
You need thousands people.
No, you don't need those.
I mean, for A/B test. Yeah.
No.
Sometimes you need 1,000, and you see just 1% of change. Yeah?
The point is that when you use Right and you use A/B testing, you test different things. For A/B testing, you usually use to analyze the conversion data or the percentage of people leaving the page or something digital. With Right, you actually test the behavior of the people, how they're actually working with the platform in this case. So it's not about how long they spend on the page or do they actually understand what is happening on this page. So it's quantity versus quality testing, more like that. And if you do the quality testing, like in test interviews, Yes, maybe ideally you would have to like have 100 in-depth interviews, but it's very time-consuming and it's really a hardcore investment in terms of value for money. So usually you use like 4 people or 6 people for segment. Like for instance, like if you're testing digital service, for instance, for the delivery, you make very micro segments of audience and you find 5 or 6 of them and you use this data from the in-depth interview to compare them with other segments. So it's a different approach. Here you need to rapidly understand your audience because you didn't have any analytics, any data before that. You just really need to understand who are those people and what are they actually doing on the platform or what they would like to do on the platform. With the A/B testing, it's usually about the conversions, basically, how they're going to use the product further.
Thank you, Kristina. Any questions? Last but not least. Alla une. No? Thank you very much,
Thank
Kristina.
you.
Kristina will be with us, so feel free to reach out. Thank you very much. Now it's time for coffee and networking. Please join at the main room, gather up so we can catch up. Thank you very much, everyone.